Hey guys, welcome back. So, I just got back from a work trip and we got parts for the Mustang. So, we got our blueprint engine here. Nicely set up, still in the crate, obviously. Carburetor for it's up there. All kinds of fun parts laying all around here. That's the new power steering. Rack and pinion setup. So motor's still in. It's been, I'd say, 2 weeks, something like that. So big thing we got to do is we got to pull the motor out, and then we need to pull the rack and pinion, get the new rack and pinion in, get everything cleaned up. New exhaust, headers, fluids, it's all there. So I'm gonna go ahead and start pulling some stuff out here. The crate's kind of in the way for anything, any kinds of setup for pretty much. So, gonna do what I can and record what I can, but we'll see what happens. So stick around. Thank you. Engine's out, so that's a good thing. Made a mess. Go figure. Always seem to make a mess. There's the old rack and pinion in here. It's a manual Flaming River rack. I'm going to pull that out. The new rack is going to be a Unisteer power steering rack. That is supposed to be set up with the motor in place for make sure all the clearances are right and everything. So we'll see how that all goes together. And pull stuff off of this motor. You can see now that I got it out here that it's missing the block plate on it, so we'll get that fixed up. It looks like it's pretty fresh, but I haven't opened it up and I really don't intend to. I might take and stick my camera down it, but I'm not sure. So we'll go ahead and take off some of the stuff we need off of this motor. If we need to get a spacer for the pulley, we'll get that, and just take everything off that we need and go from there. So right now I need to go get some floor dry. All right, so here's the beautiful Blueprint Engines 302, 300 horse. So I didn't even look in the bag yet to see what's all in there. Got the engine mounts on. Got the block plate and the flex plate on place. Just an SFI flex plate from Summit. It's got the right oil pan on it. Everything's looking real good. So I know that there's stuff I need to do to it yet, but we're gonna go ahead and just stab this in there. The majority of the rest of the stuff I can do when it's in there. I might try to take this oil plug out first. That might be a smarter move. But then again, I can do it when it's in there too. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this stabbed in here, and hopefully after that's done, I'll have enough room to actually be able to set up and record better. So everything's still the same in here. I'll deal with all the steering after the motor's in and keep on going. All right, so the new engine's at home. Looks pretty good in there. Getting some stuff moved over here. Carburetor's back on. Got the oil pressure sensor back on here. I know that kind of looks cruddy on here, but that had come off the old engine. Getting ready to put the thermostat housing on thermostat. So one thing I like to do with thermostats, I'm not saying everybody does it or everybody needs to do it, but you see right there, I drill a hole. If it doesn't have a hole in it already, I usually drill a hole. And I position that hole to the top. That way it can bleed out air and makes it a little easier to bleed all the air out of the system. So we're just going to keep going here, taking stuff off of there, putting it on here, and keep moving. See how far we can get today. I do have to excuse me, get some fittings and some other things that we don't have difference between intakes and fuel pumps. So we're gonna have to get a fitting for the for the fuel pump here to be able to put this line, hook it up here, and then also go up here. We don't have correct fittings for all that stuff. This balancer is quite a bit thicker than the old balancer, so I'm guessing none of our pulleys will line up, but we'll figure that out and get to that point. Yeah, so I still have to take some parts off the other motor to put on this motor, but we're gonna keep on putting it together. Just figured I'd show you that little trick I do with the thermostat there. All right, so we're gonna get back on the Mustang here. Been a couple days, haven't had time, kid stuff, so haven't really done much. Still right where it was. The owner stopped by yesterday, took a look at it. He's excited, so that's a good thing. Took a bunch of more stuff out of the packages. So right now we're ready to get the transmission back in, hopefully. It's a nice looking engine, isn't it? So we'll go ahead and work on getting that transmission back in there. I got a mess from before that I got to finish cleaning yet. I have floor dry all over, so we'll get the transmission in, get it mated up, and then we got to figure out some heater hoses and everything else like that. So where we're at with the heater hose, this one went to the back of the intake on the other intake. Now it has to come here. We don't have very much clearance for, we don't have very much clearance for the fittings right here with the distributor that came with the motor. So we'll have to figure something out there to get that working. And then the temp sensor kit that I got for the electric fan. This is supposed to get epoxied to the side of the radiator. I don't know how well that will work, but we'll figure it out, I guess. So I'm going to go ahead and get this place cleaned up a little bit and see if we can get the transmission put back up in there and go from there. All right, so been a busy week. Haven't really been busy in the garage, but we got some of the stuff back together, partly. Radiators just bolted in temporarily. The electric fan that we got for it, if I put that on there, he wouldn't like me too much because you wouldn't be able to get a belt on there. So we're basically at a point here where everything is pretty much mocked up in place. Headers are on, we're good there. Just pulled the pan on the transmission and ends up it's a C5 transmission, not a C4. So, but it's got a C4 bell housing. So we're good on the converter, not worried about that, but I don't have the right filter and whatnot for it. You see we got the rack under here. Sneak down here. So the rack's on. I got header clearance issues right here with the universal joint. We have the wrong rod ends. It ends up these are must be a Granada spindle on here instead of the Mustang spindle, so we don't have the right rod ends. We got to get new ones of those. Got to do a little bit more clearancing on this header for the U-joint there. I had to clearance, I don't know if you can see this or not. The AR mount, I had to clearance that on both sides. Got the starter in place. Don't have the wire hooked up yet because the old wire didn't reach. I had to clearance the new plate for the starter. That didn't fit. We got the new neutral safety switch in place, but the shift lever now, they had it tacked on, and that doesn't fit, or that, not that it didn't fit, the weld broke on it. So now I have to weld that back in place and get the range sensor back off there. So yeah, it's just been one thing after another. And it looks like they didn't grease pretty much anything on the car, which is fine. So I got to pull the rest of the old exhaust off. Get that out of the way. I'm gonna pull the pumpkin, so that means I gotta pull the tires, the backing plates, and pull the axles out. I'll pull the pumpkin out, or the third member, whatever you want to call it. Third member is proper. That way I can take out the open diff and put the mini spool in it. Then I can put the drive shaft back in. I have the 2 bolts here to tighten up on the transmission cross member yet, the transmission mount bolts. Get the drive shaft back in, then I can get the parking brake assembly back in. It didn't have a kickdown cable, so we got to order that. Also the, excuse me, the throttle cable is really wonky on here, so we'll get a new one of those coming too. Anyway, so yeah, throttle cable, I want to change that out. Then we'll get the kickdown cable. Found out the steering column in here is an aftermarket unit. It looks like it's a Flaming River unit because that's the rack that I pulled out. The manual rack was a Flaming River unit. So the new steering shaft that I got with the Unisteer kit won't work. Neither will the upper U-joint, but the upper U-joint on here is a double D. So I need to get some double D shaft and get that squared away. So yeah, there's just a whole bunch of stuff that wasn't expected, didn't know. And I have a whole bunch of parts that won't work right now, so we'll have to try and return them. I gotta fix the wiring after I get the rear end and the exhaust and everything buttoned up underneath, and I'll fix up some wiring and go from there. So we're gonna go ahead and get this rear end tear apart and get the exhaust off. We got fun stuff like this to install yet too, and make that all nice and pretty. So yeah, like this, the canceling piece for the factory steering column, that's gonna go over here too with the rest of the parts that I can't use. So I'm gonna get this apart and we'll go from there. Went ahead and got the exhaust out of here, pulled the drums off, and by golly, it doesn't look like they are even touching the brake pads and the drums. So that would probably be why we have such poor braking on here. Just have a feeling that it's not an adjustment. So we'll make sure we get those adjusted and we get good brakes before it goes back as well. It doesn't take much to adjust them. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull the bolts here, or the nuts on the backing plate. That is what retains the axles on these, so I'll go ahead and get them pulled off on both sides, slide the axle out, and then we can go ahead and pull the bolts on the pump, the third member, break that loose with the jack, let her drain out, and then we'll pull that apart. Normally I would throw that up on the table, but we're kind of lacking some room in here, so I'll see what I can do with that on the floor. Measure the backlash on it, and then pull it apart and get the mini spool in it, get it back together, get it back in. So that's where we're at right now. All right, so we got this thing set up on the table. I've already had it apart and taken out the gears, put in the mini spool, but I figured I'd show you guys this. So there was no backlash on this. It was completely tight. So I hope you can see it here in the video. But if you look at the ring gear, you can see it just chewing right away at the gear. I didn't look at the pinion very close, but if you can look at the back side too, hopefully you can see that. But it's just horribly chewing away at it. So this thing was rebuilt. You can tell it was rebuilt, but they did just a horrid job of just throwing it together. So it's unfortunate, but I'm gonna leave those gears in here. I probably shouldn't, but we don't have another set of 8-inch right now, and they're just gonna stay in there. So so you guys are aware of how to do this. You just pop the ring gear off of here, split the carrier, and then you pop the pin here out for the the cross pin, tap that out, and then you can take out the spider gears, put in the mini spool. That cross pin was hashed up pretty bad too, so I'm guessing they didn't clearance everything the way they were supposed to, or they just ran it completely dry for a little while, or it was under lubed. One of the two, three. So I'm gonna get out my lube and check this out, the paint, and then I'm actually gonna get out the dial indicator and put that on there, see what my backlash is at. And I'm thinking I'm in about the right ballpark right now. Get this thing set up, cleaned up, throw it back together, and get it back in. So I pulled one of the axles out so I could torque the ring gear back on. So just so you guys are aware why I have the axle out there. So I can get this thrown back together, get the brakes adjusted right, put the rear end back together, and start working on the exhaust and keep going. All right, so I think it's been a couple days now since maybe yesterday I recorded, but I think it was the day before. Rear end is back together. What was yesterday? Rear end's back together, brakes are adjusted, drive shaft's in. We're all good there. So I got the exhaust hanging down. Got to do some modifications because this exhaust is made for a long tube header kit, and these are tri-wise. So I got to do a little bit of modification to make it work. Fine, dandy, great, wonderful. Clearance the headers so that they fit. They're all good. Getting ready to do some wiring here. Cleaning up some of the stuff, trying to anyway. Oh, excuse me. So they had all the wiring coming through right here for the engine, which is just, sorry, right there for the engine, which is just a horribly cut hole. It looks like there's a lot of new sheet metal on here. So it's getting the sprayer kits set up. There's never been screws in either of those holes. The pump's never been on there. So I think there's quite a bit of new sheet metal in here. Get into the dash a little bit here. Sorry, don't have a whole lot of light. But we got kind of a mess in the wiring on here. The ductwork never been hooked up because there's nothing to hook them to. Yeah, a little bit of a mess. I got to take the wiper motor out, and I'm guessing you can't see that in there. Grab a flashlight quick. All right, so there's the wiper motor. The brackets, if you look in the back, I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's just horribly welded on there. So I'm gonna be careful when I take that bracket off of there. Get that all taken care of. We'll get the wiper motor out, get it changed out, get the wiper switch changed out, fix up some of this wiring and make it better. It's an aftermarket kit, but I don't know what it's from. The steering column I got dropped here. I'm pretty sure this is a Fleming River steering column. It's missing the canceling piece to cancel wipers. So we got a new piece on that ordered, but they had this adapter here for the horn, which will not work with the signal canceling. So we're gonna work on that and see what we can figure out. Got to run the new speedometer cable. Still got to rebuild the door hinges on both sides. That side over there is bent, so I'm gonna rebuild it and see what happens. The reverse light wiring was never hooked up at all. It's just sitting in the trunk drop downs. So I got to run wiring back for the reverse lights. The neutral safety switch, you got to wire that in. It's just a mess. But I am gonna say I'm not a professional by any means, but this was quite a hack job. If you don't know what you're doing, ask for help. Research. The internet's a wonderful resource. You can do better. I know if you're just throwing it together, don't sell it as a fully restored car. It's bad for everybody. So we're going to keep on moving on this. We're going to do the best we can to get it back up to somewhat of a decent standard and keep moving. So like I said, I'm not a professional, but I'm going to make it better than what it is. So stick around. Alright, I think it's time to end this video. I tried doing this once before, but that video got scrambled for some reason. So, 66 Mustang. She's pretty much done. I got one little issue with it, but the speedometer gear seems to have caused me some issues, and the speedometer's not working. So I got to deal with that, but besides that, she's done. Looking pretty nice. So a nice blueprint motor in there. Interior ended up pretty nice. Fires right up. So on that note, I'm pretty much going to call this car done. Sounds nice, looks nice. Was sitting here for a week when I was out of state again for work. Every other week I'm gone. So that's what's taking me so long to get this car done. Wasn't even getting parts that took long. It was just the fact that I was not here to do it. So we'll go ahead and get this nice car out of here pretty quick here, and we got to get all the parts out. I don't know if you noticed the Mustang sitting right there. That is my middle boy's car. He decided to buy that, and now he's thinking about buying a Camaro and possibly selling that to me. S10 is over there, somewhat back together. It's got to come apart to go back together and get up. So the next project that I'm going to be working on in here is going to be the 47 1 ton for my wife. So we'll go from there, and I got to get everything rearranged to try and get that in here. So stick around, stay tuned. We got the 47's going to come up first. Then we got 3 Mustangs right now that we'll have to determine on what we're going to do and where we're going to go with them. So thanks a lot, guys and gals. I appreciate you watching. And if you got any questions or anything, holler in the comments. Hit that like button, subscribe, and catch you later.